South Africa is running out of water and time, with 37% of treated water lost every day and household use far above global norms. Demand, we're told, could outstrip supply by the year 2030. This summer, the Water Research Commission's A WaterWise Nation campaign issues a clear warning: change behaviour now or face a crisis. From fixing leaks and reusing greywater to smarter industry and farming practices, every action, we're told, counts. Let's speak more about this with Dr Jennifer Molwantwa, who's the CEO of the Water Research Commission and joins us now via our video link. Dr Jennifer, it's lovely to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for making time for the SABC News channel, especially around such an important issue. Already we are told from this research that South Africa loses about 37% of its treated water every day. That's quite a figure. It's about a third or so. And one has to wonder where we ought to begin to at least solve that issue. Are the maintenance plans, for example, that we're hearing about, a good first step?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation. Definitely 37% is a lot of water, that is on average. And when we're talking average, it means in some areas it's as high as about 60, in other areas slightly lower. But what we also have to look at is to convert this. It's money that's going down the drain. It's money that has been treated using our water boards, and that water, which would have been treated to provide for a certain number of people, is now unable to provide for that number of people. And then we are saying we really have to start relooking our ways in which we use water. Critically important is that municipalities, as the Water Services Authority, and that have got the authority to appoint water services providers, really have to rethink how they are dealing with these water losses. They have to prioritize infrastructure, reconnection and reconfiguration to make sure that we are not losing this much water and the money that is associated with it.
But where is the issue falling through the cracks, excuse the pun, because I know a lot of it has to do with leaks, but we've heard in many instances of water boards being dysfunctional and that issue lasting for years. I mean, one has to wonder whether we have any fighting chance to try to curb these kind of figures when the problem seems to be so deeply entrenched.
Water business is not pap and flays. Water business is a scientific, it's a commercial with a social aspect to it, business that must be professionally run. Now, our water services authorities will have a water services provider that is appointed, for example, within the municipality. There you require the requisite skills from your hydrogeologists, from the requisite engineering skills, to make sure that the right people with the right skills, remunerated properly, are able to make a change in this. And this is one of the reforms that the Department of Water and Sanitation has really pushed for, to say, let us ring fence the water service provision. Let us get licensed, capable companies, as well as entities or within the municipalities themselves, to run this professionally and to make sure that while we understand we have got a problem with indigents that obviously are covered by the fiscus, those must still be provided for. But communication, education and awareness is also critical. We need to understand that each and every one of us has got an allocated volume of water. And this is also notwithstanding the fact that when you're looking at other rural areas, for example, some people don't even have water there. But here we're talking in urban areas, and we're having people overutilizing their daily allocation, their household allocation. There's a wastage. Leaks just go unattended by municipalities. And we are also resolving to these water tankers, which are not a sustainable business. So we need to change how the whole business of water is run to make sure that it is effective, it is efficient, and that those that are able to pay for a service that is consistent.
Yeah. You know, because water seems accessible, I think a lot of people take it for granted, and especially if you live in and around Gauteng, it's been raining quite consistently over the past couple of weeks. It feels a bit counterintuitive to now come onto the television in the news and tell people that we need to use water sparingly or else we'll be in trouble by the year 2030. Help us connect the dots, Doc, why it seems even though there's bountiful rain, there are still these serious issues to do with clean water supply in places like Gauteng.
The simplest methodology that one has to understand is that it is a finite resource. The same water that falls from the rain falls on the floor, falls in the rivers, we treat it, we utilize it, we go to the toilets, we dispose of it, it goes back into the rivers, it gets abstracted, it gets treated. There is no other way of making new water. So within this whole finite system, there's population growth, there is what you call climate change impacts, which means more evaporation and then more rainfall coming down very fast, creating these floods. And in other cases, there are also prolonged droughts. So within this one system, we all must understand that we are all sharing that one finite resource. We are finding that some of the farmers, for example, will abstract some of this water and utilize it to irrigate. But they irrigate midday when the sun is at its highest and half the water gets to evaporate. So it does not serve the purpose that it's meant to. And then you have people that say, oh, but it's just a borehole. That very borehole is getting its water from the aquifer, which is recharged by the same rainfall and the same rainfall that also recharges the river. So once we start understanding that, we need to understand that it means we are all sharing the same pie. Now we have to provide for what we call the reserve, which means the base flow of the rivers, for the aquatic system, the fish, and all of that. Secondly, we have to provide for human needs, basic human needs, which means that we have to have water that's treated that we can drink. Each and every one of us is allocated about 320 liters per person per day, which is even almost double the global average. And this is incorrect when we think about it logically. For a country that is considered semi-arid, the 30th driest country in the world, we really have to start making better decisions around how do I utilize the water. If you don't want to think about it in water terms, think about it in monetary terms. We need to save more of our money and make sure that we utilize it efficiently so.
Yeah, and hopefully we're not losing so much of our money through things like leaks. And you know, this has been such a sustained issue that one has to wonder what it'll take to finally fix it. But the question really I'm hoping to get to, Doc, is already, you know, the Water Commission is sounding the alarm about us essentially reaching a critical point in the year 2030. And I remember a time when there were warnings about us reaching an electricity crisis before we got accustomed to something like load shedding. If nothing is done before 2030, help us, I suppose, transpose what we understand about load shedding into the water industry and the kind of issues we might run into.
You know, water runs industries, water runs our daily living, water runs food production. Now, if we do not have adequate water to cover all of these needs, it means that we're going to have a challenge. It's a different challenge from energy, because if, as a human being, you don't have electricity at home, you can make a little fire on the side or outside and make your food, but that food would still require water. And those are some of the things that we're saying. We have to change our habits, our relationship, and our behavior, and how we relate to water. Because we come from a system where we really believe, you know, there's abundance. I always make an example around Windhoek City. It's a desert. They have got water reuse, water reclamation, and they're using desalination. They know the number of people available, they know the volume of water available, but they make sure that at any given point, each and every person will get their equitable share. It means that they had to get their population educated and aware to understand that for all of us to share, even if today we have 100 mils and there's 100 of us, will each get 1 liter. But if there's 100 mils and then there is, 200 of us, each one must use half a liter. So that is the kind of understanding that we're trying to build. We are calling on the private sector, on business, to choose the better technologies that are more water efficient. and to also have be intentional about the water footprint, because when you're looking at, producing, for example, vegetables, you say, no, water is so cheap. You're making profits from the vegetables. If you really had to account for the volume of water that is used, are you making real profits, or are you really wasting all of this water? So we are hoping that we are going to create new habits for society, for business, for government, as well as, all around us to effectively change this. We are looking at making very big impact amongst the young people, amongst learners, because, so they will still are the ones that will switch off, with the electricity issue. Your child will just switch off and say, why did you leave the lights on? So we're hoping that they will be reminding their parents, there's a drip and there's a leak. Did you report it? But we're calling also on municipalities to have quick turnaround times, plans, processes, and procurement processes in place to make sure that water must not just run down the road endlessly for days on end, and people knowing that it's not even worth it to report it because they are not going to be coming to fix it. We really have to change our behavior towards water. We as researchers are saying that 2030 could be a long way, 4 years to come, but we know that the habits, the systems in place must be changed now. We are saying there is a lot more technologies that must also be advanced, both from managing water quality, from managing sewage treatment, to ensure that all of these are water efficient in the end, to make sure that we all have sustainability and water security beyond 2030.
Sure. Yeah, you say 2030 is far, Dr. Jennifer. I think it's very close, eeringly so. The warnings are loud and clear. Hopefully, the behavior starts to set in. Dr. Jennifer Molwantwa is the CEO of the Water Research Commission. Thanks very much indeed.